This video will go over the basics for graphing a quadratic and all the vocabulary you need to know when you're graphing a quadratic. These keywords are very important vocabulary words that you need to have memorized for this unit. A parabola is just the name of the U shape that a quadratic makes. The U shape comes from when you have an x squared. So the parent function for all quadratics is y equals x squared, which is what I have graphed here. Now, the vertex is the highest or the lowest point on your graph. The vertex will either be a minimum or a maximum. So a minimum is when the parabola is facing upwards and the vertex acts as the lowest point on the graph. A maximum is when the parabola is turned upside down and the vertex is the highest point on the graph. The final word that you need to be familiar with is axis of symmetry. Axis of symmetry is the line that cuts the parabola in half. All parabolas are symmetric, which means if you were to fold it in half, it would be the same on both sides. If you look at our parent function, it does match. Right here, I have negative 1, 1. On the other side, I have 1, 1. Those are both 1 away from the axis of symmetry. Now, here are two examples on how you would label different parabolas. The first one is asking, is this the parent function? Well, this is not the same as the graph before. This was the parent function, and the parent function always is centered around 0, 0. So this is not the parent function. The vertex is the point where the U shape meets, and you always want to write the vertex as a coordinate. So this coordinate point is 1, negative 2. So we're going to write for vertex 1, negative 2. Now, this parabola is facing up, so this is a minimum, and the value is the y value of your vertex. It's the lowest y value that your parabola hits. So the value here is negative 2. Now, for your axis of symmetry, that is the line that cuts it in half. If you remember last semester when we talked about vertical lines are always written as x equals. So the equation for that line is x equals 1 because it's crossing at 1. X-intercept means where it's crossing the x-axis. So if you look here, we have two x-intercepts. We have one here and one here. We're just going to estimate those for today. So the first one is at about negative 0.50. The second one is at about 2.50. Remember, we talked about x-intercepts last semester. That is where they're crossing the x-axis, and that is always when y is 0. Now, the y-intercept is where we're crossing the y-axis. So if we look here, I am crossing y right here at negative 1. So I would write that point as 0, negative 1. Finally, the last thing we're going to talk about today is domain and range. We did this the very first unit of the year, so it's probably been a while since you've talked about it. Now, domain is everything from the left to the right, and I'm actually going to draw in arrows here. We're going to assume that it keeps going and going forever. So my domain is going left forever, and it is going right forever, which means my domain is all real numbers. Now for the range, I'm starting at negative 2 for y, and then I'm going up forever. So my range is y is greater than or equal to negative 2. Now, it's very important that you label all of these points correctly. If you notice, the x value of the vertex should match your axis of symmetry because the axis of symmetry goes through the vertex. the value should always match the y value of your vertex, because that's what it's talking about, the lowest point. Your x-intercepts should be when y is 0, and your y-intercepts should be when x is 0. So, looking at the next one, we're going to do the exact same thing. First, is this the parent function? Well, it does not match the graph before, so this is not the parent function. The vertex is this point right here, which is 2, 1. This one is upside down, so the vertex is a maximum. And the value, the y value of my vertex is at 1. So we're going to label that 1. The axis of symmetry is the vertical line that goes through the vertex, which is going through 2, so x equals 2. I have 2 x-intercepts right here and right here, so I'm going to label those as 1, 0, and 3, 0. And I have a y-intercept right here at -3, so we label that 0, -3. Now, the domain, it goes left and right forever, so the domain is still all real numbers. And then for the range, we're going down forever, and it stops right here at +1. So the way we would write that is y is less than or equal to 1. Most of these vocabulary words are straight review from what we've talked about the first semester, but a few of them are new. So take a second to study these and make sure you understand the meaning behind each word.